Reports are coming in that the success of Fortnite is actually cannibalizing other top titles.
Does that mean Fortnite is taking over the video game industry?
Hot take!
So the subject matter of this video is a little bit complex, but Adam did a little bit of research to kind of make it a little bit easier to understand.
Don't put this on me, Shane.
I'm gonna put it on you.
So yeah, there's no denying that Fortnite is one hot tamale.
Yeah.
And we've seen like exponential growth in how the game's doing, right? So the game was initially released just over 1 year and 1 day, in fact.
Yes, and back then, when it was released, remember,
we were different people.
Yeah.
The world was a different place.
It was a different game. Everybody remembers Fortnite when it first came out as kind of failing because it wasn't a Battle Royale game.
Yes.
It was a completely different game.
Right.
And then they added the Battle Royale mechanic.
They added the Battle Royale in September 26th. So we've only seen like about 9-ish months or so of Fortnite as it is now, Battle Royale, right? And in that time, in the lifespan of Fortnite, I guess including the original release as well, but that didn't do that well, the revenue's been about $1 billion, over $1 billion. So when you take into consideration the fact that the games industry as a whole in 2017 has made just over $100 billion, that's a pretty big deal. Now, one billion out of 100 billion might not sound like the biggest thing in the world, but when you take into consideration, okay, Fortnite has only been a thing for about 9 months or so, and then all of the other games that are released, we're talking thousands of games a year. Yeah. That's a pretty big deal.
And here's another thing to keep in mind, too. All the other games we're talking about, there are a bunch of different video games that have varying different ways of distribution and sales. But keep this in mind. Most of the Battle Royale games that exist out there right now that are popular in any degree were actually sold to consumers. So that means that you actually had to go out and buy like a $20 or $30 pack and then you could actually play the game. But Fortnite is a very interesting thing because Fortnite has a different game model.
It's funny because they did sell it.
Yeah, and nobody bought it.
The people that did buy it, later on, I just read this earlier, the developers were like, we're sorry, we'll give you a refund.
Yeah.
We don't care.
Right?
Everyone's playing our games.
So what happened was the free-to-play mode that was released. Now, this free-to-play mode, here's what's important. They didn't put anything that was restrictive or any content there that you couldn't access from the base game. What I mean by that is there's no weapons, there's no levels, there's no characters you can pick, there's stuff like that. None of that exists. All you're really getting is cosmetic features for the money that you pay into the game. And those cosmetic features are what are actually selling. It's those items that actually don't mean anything to the core gameplay of the game that keeps selling. Another game that tried to do this too was kind of Team Fortress 2, but into a little bit less of an extent as well.
I have less experience with games like Dota or League of Legends, but they do have that sort of monetization platform as well.
Those games are a little bit varied and different because in the case of Team Fortress 2, there are actual weapons in the game that are very difficult to come by that offer different experiences and different kind of connectivity options and ways to use them. But when it comes to Fortnite, you really don't buy weapons because all the weapons you find are on the field, right? You actually just go and pick them up as you play the game. So although they can add new weapons and items like that to the game world, and they have, those things are things anyone can pick up. So realistically, all the money they've made here is off of basically clothing and like customizable items that look a little bit different.
So Fortnite has been great because it's allowed other users to kind of come into the gaming world and allow the gaming to grow a bit. The audience is a little bit bigger because of the huge success that this is. But what we started this video off as is like, is Fortnite eating into other companies' successes as well? If you just take a look, like, it's very hard to find like the specific numbers on this, right? Especially because the meteoric rise of Fortnite is still, it's relatively young.
It is.
But if you look at like numbers on Twitch, for example, there is a correlation between people who watch games on Twitch tend to play those games as well.
It's true.
There's a very, I think, a justified correlation there.
You're in the same community, right? You play the games, you watch the games, you play because you understand them a bit more.
Yeah, so I do have some numbers. In the second quarter of this year, Fortnite is up 59%, which is like no huge surprise. It's enormous, right?
It is, yeah.
But we're seeing a downturn of many very popular games that were huge, right? Kind of the Fortnites of the past. So League of Legends, the watch time, Twitch watch is down 19%, CSGO is down 51%.
That's crazy.
Right, and Overwatch is down.
Yeah, 16%
Overwatch was
The king.
Yeah, yeah. It was
everyone was
the
watching
king
that.
for the last couple of years, and it's down 16% as well.
Now, what's interesting about this to me is that seeing these numbers fall does mean that these games are not as popular as they once were, but you got to keep in mind, right? Fortnite is so new. Another game could come out tomorrow that could completely wipe away Fortnite from the experience that everybody has, right?
Because we literally saw that with PUBG.
Yeah.
PUBG,
It was big.
It was the light that shone brightest or whatever. It just fizzled out, right? When Fortnite went free to play.
Everyone was doing all these events based around PUBG. Actually, just recently too. This is a separate topic in its entirety, but they are basically trying to make PUBG esports tournaments and stuff like that. And the creator of PUBG is basically saying, I don't think we're ready for that.
Right.
And it's crazy because the game was out for a much longer time.
And then meanwhile, Fortnite has invested a lot of their money back into esports. We've seen some tournaments,
yes,
but I think there's going to be an even bigger push because they've invested over $100 million in esports. So the future of Fortnite, they think it's going to keep blooming, I guess.
Yeah.
And why wouldn't it? They released that iOS version of Fortnite. Do you know how long that took to develop?
I don't know, maybe a month?
Oh, it was 2
months.
2 months.
Okay.
So it took them 2 months to take that game, put it on cell phones and tablets, and man.
Now, one of the reasons why we're seeing such crazy development times for them is because, remember, the people that made this game are Epic, okay? Epic is...
Literally.
Yeah. Literally the company Epic.
Yeah, Epic.
Now, they've been around for years and years making a whole bunch of video games, but primarily... Unreal Tournament and Gears of War and stuff like that. But remember, all of these games are based upon an engine that they created, and this engine is sold out to a bunch of other companies to release games on a bunch of different platforms. What's very important about them is that they understand their engine so well that they're able to get the game to work pretty much perfectly. So the way that this works is that while PUBG still basically struggles to this day to get the game working on multiple different platforms at a good frame rate, Fortnite came out and went, okay, we can make it run pretty much close to what everybody expects it to run on a mobile platform because we have that close access and development time with the engine. If they have an issue with the engine, they don't have to make a phone call to another company. They walk down the hall and talk to Steve and go, Steve, this isn't working. And Steve's like, oh, I got the fix for that. That's pretty much how it works. That's Epic.
And I heard that, I don't know the exact...
Big fans of Steve here.
I don't know the exact rumor, but I did hear that Epic, because Fortnite was doing so well, they're just like shoveling the money in, that they were actually, many of the assets and the things that developers were using for the engine, like the revenue's being changed because of that. Like it's getting easier and less costly and more beneficial to other developers because Epic is just reeling in the dough. They're kind of sharing the love slightly.
Right, because the more people that use the engine, the more prolific the engine is to be working on a bunch of devices. So for instance, if a game company, a game development company, again, a console development company, this is very specific, someone that's making, let's say, the Nintendo Switch,
That's Nintendo.
Right? The PlayStation, Sony, the Xbox, Microsoft, any of those companies that can expect an engine to be working primarily on their systems, it really benefits Epic to be in this position where most of the games are being created with their engines, because that means the next game console that's made is going to be working around the concept that it must work well with this engine. This is a very important feature, okay? The guys that made PUBG, what was their engine built on?
A pile of poop.
Well, it actually, to my knowledge, it was actually Epic.
Was it Epic? Really?
I think it was Epic,
okay, because they had huge optimization issues.
The Unreal Engine, I believe.
Yeah. And that was a big part of why they were, well, we're talking about cannibalization, that's a big part of why they were cannibalized, was because they could not successfully take their assets and work with that engine and make something that worked efficiently.
Remember, like we said, when you are working internally, the Epic engine is called Unreal Engine. If you're working internally with the Unreal Engine, you have a better understanding of how it works. And the guys at PUBG have apparently not been able to get what they've made to work properly, despite the fact that they're working on the exact same engine. This is why Epic is in such a great position to be doing all this stuff. Now, at the same time, Epic was working with PUBG, and they knew this kind of stuff was in development, and they went around and basically made a version of that exact game and gave it away for free.
Right, and there's some controversy around that
absolutely.
as well.
So there's this big thing that's going on. So the idea that Epic is cannibalizing the industry by making this one game super powered and giving it away for free, and then controlling all the other games that exist out there with that one single engine almost sounds monopolistic, but they're not the only engine out there. There's several other ones. It's just developers aren't using them nearly as as much because they don't make as much money or they don't have as much experience working on other development engines.
Or the engine itself is very easy to work with, right? That's what I've heard.
I mean, you do hear about a bunch of other engines that get utilized. Like a big one that you see all the time getting used in indie games and stuff is, we just talked about it the other day.
All I ever think about is RPG Maker when it comes to indies.
Well, not RPG Maker. Jeez, I forgot the name of this engine. They just released a brand new game of Day of the Tentacle with that engine.
Oh, it's not the Scum engine.
No, see, that's the thing, right?
The Scum engine's from like what 1988 or something.
Yeah, but see, LucasArts used to make their own video games, and then when they did that, they made their own engine to make that happen.
Right.
Now, game companies out there can just go out and use an already existing engine, and that's basically the idea here, right? That these companies don't have to do that anymore, and even when they do use it, like we've seen with PUBG, sometimes it really feels like they rush the experience.
Right, they rush it, or they just don't know how to optimize.
Yeah, and that seems to be a really big issue. So you're seeing this happen a lot more often now. And I think Epic is in probably one of the best positions possible.
So it's like, okay, they say a rising tide favors all ships, right? In a way, it does, because we're seeing like better numbers for consoles than ever, and in-game purchases are up considerably. And if you really look at the data, you'd see that if you remove Fortnite from the in-game purchase sort of map, there'd be a downturn. But with Fortnite, it's starting to kind of skyrocket because of that game alone, because of its free-to-play model. It's
the engine I was thinking of, Unity, okay? The Unity engine. If PUBG,
it's the other big engine. Why did we not think of that?
If PUBG was built on Unity, I think Unity is sometimes not as good working as other engines out there and stuff, but Unity definitely would have been a lot more popular right now if PUBG was built upon that, right? This is the idea. This cannibalistic nature that we're seeing here of all these other games that are starting to kind of go down, there's this idea too that I think it was Blizzard said that, well, we're not too worried because gamers will come back to us.
I have a direct quote. So Activision Blizzard said, players always come back to the franchises that are the foundation of the communities that they're a part of. So you'll be coming back to World of Warcraft. You'll be coming back to StarCraft. It kind of sounds. It sounds a little bit. It sounds a little.
Agree.
It sounds a little bit like, I don't know, like oh no, it's fine, you know.
No, because like literally, this is happening, and they're saying this because they're not telling that to us, the consumers. Okay, us gamers, we know better. When a really good game comes out and you know it's better than the previous games, you don't go back to that older game. Okay, in most instances, when people have seen a better sequel to a game or something like that, you don't go back to that older game because the better one succeeded. So what you're seeing here is Blizzard is saying this message not because they're doing better. They're saying this message because they're basically telling their investors, don't leave us. It's a little bit rough, but they're going to come back to us in the end.
And EA had a very similar response as well. They said it's bringing younger people into the marketplace and younger people into first-person shooters. Obviously, they've never played Fortnite because it is a third-person building.
Oh my God, I can't believe they said that.
A lot of melee, but there's shooting as well. But it goes to the exact same thing that you were saying. That this sounds more like the group is just trying to, pet investors lovingly. Like, it's okay.
Of all the companies basically to say right now, oh, don't worry, the kids are gonna come back to us. I don't want to hear that from Electronic Arts. Now, because they've been taking game engines and old video game concepts and turning them into
Call of Duty's getting a Fortnite clone.
Yeah, right? Like, you don't know what gamers want right now, and you definitely don't know what the young gamers want.
They know kids want Battle Royale, because it's going to be
They know kids want Battle Royale, so they're going to sell them a package of Battle Royale. How dumb. Like, I mean, the concept of that is just,
Well, maybe we should wrap things up.
Sure.
So yeah, if you guys have any sort of comments about what you think about Fortnite, do you think that they're actually cannibalizing other teams, other games,
or are you like Blizzard and EA and thinking that the young kids are gonna come right back? I don't think it's gonna happen. But if you do, let us know in the comments below.